So let's go with the history of Juneteenth, okay? All right. Wait, what is this coming out? Okay. So I'm going to read to you the historical historical facts. I know some of this by heart, but I want to make sure I uh tell you the correct information. Okay. Mhm. So how y'all doing this morning? Hey there, sexy toy lady. How you doing, sis? How you doing? How are you doing? Okay. Yeah, I wanna tell you the correct information. Okay. Okay. In Galveston on June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger announced the end of legalized slavery in the state. Okay. Remember, Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which technically is an executive order. I think of it also as a military executive order because he is trying to undermine the Confederacy's reliance on slavery. So if I want the Union to defeat them in battle, what can I do to undermine their society? Their whole reason for y'all pray for that sexy tent lady, aka Conscious Criminals. Did you ever get my email? She is in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta or South Fulton, right? And a certain man is supposed to show up later on, right? Okay, we'll talk about that later, but let me get through this. But um and uh he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, and plus there were abolitionists in the Republican Party when they were liberal at the time, and they had wanted him to end slavery, but he was waiting for a Union battle so that public opinion. There were already generals who were emancipating slaves as they were defeating Confederate armies. Then there were others who were returning the slaves to the slave owners. Then there were slaves who realized, like, hey, the people in the blue are fighting against the people in the gray, and people in the gray wants to keep us enslaved. So they picked up on they listened, they were paying attention. Some of them could read it right, and they left. Some became spies. Some became ditch diggers. Some tended to the wounded. Some also became soldiers. A lot of them became soldiers too. Okay. Um, you had the South Carolina Volunteers, which was primarily former slaves, led by a abolitionist. I can't think of his name now. It's a really, really long name. And then you have the 54th Massachusetts, which mostly was free black men, but in the movie Glory, it's shown as that a lot of them were former slaves. But nonetheless, the Emancipation Proclamation says that all the slaves in the Confederate States or those who are in rebellion are free. Not the four slave states that stayed in the Union, but the ones who are in the Confederacy. Well, that was January 1st, 1863. Texas is the most western Confederate state. Plus, after the Battle of Vicksburg, which split the Confederacy in half, there was not communication with the east and west side of the Confederacy. Also, the Confederacy was very much behind the times, did not have a lot of railroads, did not have a lot of what do you call it, telegraphs to get messages. So even when the last battle of the actual Civil War happened, which was June 13th, 1865, the Battle of Palmyra Ranch, the Confederates won, but the war was over. The Union soldiers had told them the war was over, that Lincoln was reelected, he was assassinated, President Johnson was over, and the war was over with. Okay, so June 19th, here comes General Gordon Granger. He lands in Galveston. He reads the proclamation, and all the slaves there are free. Then he moves to Houston and does the same thing. And so one of the things that the free slaves did was a lot of them settled around what is called Freedmanstown, which is near downtown. And then later on, they moved into the 3rd Ward and 5th Ward area. The freed slaves, led by a minister named Jack Yates, who was a leader in the community, purchased a grant of land called which they renamed Emancipation Park. And so every June 19th, they held an emancipation or Juneteenth celebration. And so, and also it took a while for the rest of the Texas slaves to find out that they were free as well, because also some people in the Confederacy brought their slaves to Texas because they thought they were going to get freed. And then some of them made them finish the work before they freed them. So you still had emancipation wasn't totally full when Granger landed in Galveston and then moved to Houston. Betty Yellick, no. And see, this is the point I'm trying to make also. I want to tell people this, if y'all can stop saying this. Stop saying that he made this a holiday or they made this a holiday. Because I'm going to explain something about why that statement is problematic. But it's also a good criticism as well to keep us on our toes. Okay? All right. This is from Henry Louis Gates. This is what Ranger basically his orders were. This is from Dr. Henry Louis Gates, who's a leading African American historian. This is also from quoted from him from The Root, leading black newspaper or online newspaper. It says, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights, rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present home and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. General Orders, number 3, Headquarters, District of Texas, Galveston, June 19, 1865. Okay. And it says, when Major General Gordon Granger issued the above order, he had no idea that in establishing the Union Army's authority over the people of Texas, he was also establishing the basis for a holiday. Juneteenth means June plus 19th. Today, the most popular annual celebration of emancipation from slavery in the United States. After all the time Granger assumed command at the Department of Texas, the Confederate capital in Richmond had fallen. The executive to whom he referred, President Lincoln, was dead, and the 13th abolition slip was well on its way to ratification. Okay. Okay. And even when he came here, like I said, there were rebels or confederacies who were like, they didn't like the idea of their slaves being freed. And so that there was some violence. Okay. It says some number of ex-rebels in the region took to bushwhacking and plunder. If you ever saw Free State of Jones, you saw what some of the rebels were doing in the towns. Okay. So I wanted to let y'all historically read these words so you can understand. Like, this wasn't like, oh, they made this a holiday out of the blue. I'm from Texas. Okay. All right. We were the last Confederate state slaves. My descendants were the last ones to know that they were free. My family has always celebrated Juneteenth. Always. The state, I can tell you. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. I was trying to find the. Okay. Because here in Texas, all right, we have Juneteenth as a recognized state holiday was introduced in 1979 by Representative Al Edwards. So it has been a state holiday since 1979. It is in the Texas history and U.S. history books. So kids, even if you're not from here, if you're in the 4th or 7th grade, you're going to hear about Juneteenth. When North Forest ISD was in existence, because it was predominantly African American school district, they put Juneteenth on the calendar as a holiday for there. I was we used I think I was doing summer school? Or I think we were sharing their building. HCC was sharing their campus building. And they basically had a note on the door saying June 19th, the building was going to be closed because that was a holiday. And I was like, oh, cool. Because I didn't know anybody else was doing that. My aunt told me as long as she has worked, she always took June 19th off. She told her employer that June 19th she was not going to be at work. And I said, really? You just told them that? She said, yeah, I don't work on Juneteenth. And that's my aunt. She's 83. She started working when she was a teenager. And see, if you're not from Texas, you might not know about it. The one time I think I was really impressed, I was on the bus going to my substitute job, and a mom in New York City was quizzing her daughter over what was in her history book. And Juneteenth was in her book. And I was so happy. I was smiling. I didn't want to interrupt them because I was like, oh my goodness, Juneteenth has made it to New York City. You know? And so there are Juneteenth celebrations in Texas. There are some also in Arkansas and Louisiana. But a lot of it is the people who are from Texas who have celebrated, and they've gone elsewhere and they have continued the tradition. There was a really good article from The Root. I really love this author. Talked about how her father, who was from Texas, moved to Arkansas and married her mother. And every June 19th, that was a tradition in their home. Like his family, his kids knew about it. They had family over. They were, talking about, and he was always talking about Texas, and this is where we're from, and this is what, and I'm like, that oral history, that tradition is being passed on. Some people didn't get it because they're not from Texas or didn't know anyone from Texas. It's not in their history book. Also, certain southern states have their own date that they celebrate when slavery ended. Like DC, I want to say, if you notice the last couple of years, Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania has always been a free state. By the way, Pennsylvania has a very rich history of helping free slaves. They have really good abolition societies. Successfully, I never learned this in high school. I never learned about it. And see, that's true too. Some people's history books don't have it. And especially if you are a former Confederate state, maybe Texas is the exception because, we think everything Texas is wonderful. So we're going to tell you about it, right? Other southern states after slavery really believed in lost cause ideology. Hey, we lost because we didn't have enough men or people, but the reason for us succeeding was actually right. And so they always was like, oh, what about the good old days? So when they wrote their history books, it was always from the vantage point of like, hey, our slaves were happy. These Union people came down here, tried to oppress us. They don't call the Civil War for decades. They call it the War of Northern Aggression. But the Confederates were the ones that fired the first shot. And then when they talk about Reconstruction, when Black men can vote and they're blowing other Black men into office and they're making decisions and their families, Black families are being reunited, they speak it of a very negative manner. Like, oh, they were corrupt. Oh, they didn't know what they were doing. And so that's why Reconstruction didn't only last this long. And then they started talking about everything else. And that started to change in the 1950s and 60s because now you have Black men and women who fought in World War II who has these medals and these honors, and they fought for a country that don't really care for them. You can't really deny them rights once they get back. Plus, now they got the GI Bill, so now they can go try to get better homes, a better education. They start groups to fight against the segregation. You have people who are reading history books, rewriting history books, you know, changing the narrative on what people were saying about slavery, about history, about the Harlem Renaissance. They're learning about Frederick Douglass. You know, they're putting different things into the curriculum that wasn't there before. Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing is there were history books that people grew up with because of where they were. Either you were up north, you didn't know about it, or you were down south in a state that really doesn't want to mention it. But then everybody like me from Texas is like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this for Juneteenth. And you looking at me like, what are you talking about? And like I said, other states have different days. Like when Granger came here June 19th, we were the last ones. But other states in other cities too have been emancipated. The 4 states that stayed in the Union, they weren't emancipated really until the 13th Amendment gotten passed. You know? And so yeah, and guess what, sexy toy lady? We have sundown towns too. And you know how sundown towns came about? Is because white supremacists, people with lost cause ideology, want to keep Blacks as close to slavery as possible without calling it slavery. So when Black people were trying to move and leave after the Civil War, and they would have, go to different towns or communities, they wanted to make sure that their town didn't have too many Black people, that the Black people were kept in their place. Yeah, it's called emancipation. That's why every year, thank you, KK DeJoy, for mentioning this. That's why for the last couple of years, with the exception of this year and last year, the day you file your taxes has moved because their emancipation day is like April 15th or April 14th or something like that. And depending on what day it's observed on, that might be tax day. So it got moved. That's why. Emancipation Day in DC is in April. For us, it's June. You know. So thank you for pointing that out, KK de jure. So that's why it's such a significance. Now, like I said, Black people in Texas been celebrating it. Now, my cousin who had his own business, he did not give us the day off. I used to work for him in the summer. He did not give us the day off for Juneteenth, but we actually had a Juneteenth meal at work that day because that was like I said, that was a family tradition. Okay, and then like I said, I have some friends and friends. Hey, Vici, actually it spans back hard. He said alleged. Okay. Okay. Beach, you probably missed this point. My family has been celebrating Juneteenth for years. A lot of Black people in Texas have been celebrating for years. It was celebrated since June 19, 1865, when the first slave found out they were free. They held Juneteenth celebrations every year after that to commemorate the event. 1979, it was introduced in Texas as a state holiday. So we've had it as a state holiday since 1979. Other states may have a different Emancipation Day. Like DC is April. For the 4 states that set in the Union, it's not until the 13th Amendment is abolished that, all the slaves there are free. Other states, cities, depending on when the Union showed up, that all the slaves were free, or when the slaves started like, hey, I see the men in blue, I'm going over there. Okay. Other states, like for us in Texas, it's like, Texas, we think we're unique, which we are, but other places are unique too. But we really want to tell you about it. So, I'm saying, kids in 4th grade, they're gonna learn about Juneteenth. Kids in 7th grade gonna learn about Juneteenth. Kids in the 8th grade gonna learn about Juneteenth. In celebration of Juneteenth, I sent my cash app to my white friend. Yeah, help. Hey. That's great, Rev. Hey, Chanel. Hey, Vici. Hey, DeJour. Anybody else? That sexy toy lady, Betty. Crowning Empress. What does Crowning Empress say? Hey, Lewis, thank you, Dippin. LMLO. What is someone? We can't be foolish. Okay. It's not necessarily foolish, but it's like if you don't know, you don't know. Like Betty Ellick said. But that's why I'm doing this, because I'm like, this is a teachable moment. This is like, I'm a history teacher. Let me do this. I was so excited, and that's why I want to tell people, stop saying like, oh, they gave us this holiday. No, we gave each other this holiday. Hell, we heard the news and we kept celebrating about it. Okay. My family, so like I said, my family celebrates about it. Most Black people here. If you're not a Black person from here, and then you come here and you learn about Juneteenth, you're like, oh, what is that? But guess what? You probably gonna be invited to somebody's barbecue, either church, family reunion, or friend on Juneteenth. You probably gonna be having your own. So it's gonna be like, okay, all right, this is how we do things. I'm just saying. Like I said, Texas had it as a state holiday for 1979 since 1979. Now, let's talk about exactly. Black folks here party hard on Juneteenth that they do on July 4th. They do. Okay, Vici, but I'm a Black person telling you in this state that it's taught. Juneteenth is taught. You missed the point where I talked about other states, especially in the South, those who were lost cause ideology, didn't even teach Juneteenth. Didn't even want to teach Reconstruction, because they were teaching about how slavery was the good old days. Okay. Oh, this is great. Oh, that is so sweet. Mrs. MSW. Oh, that's cute. I like that. See, that's true. You never heard of it until last year. That's great. All right. Thanks, Rev. So like I said, it's Texas. Like we think unique. We got a whole 2 years one in middle school, one in elementary. Maybe even can say high school too. We take world history. We're talking about the Texas Revolution. It's in our book. Okay. Some other places, transplants from Texas have gone other places and they have their own support. Like right now, there's a celebration happening in Atlanta right now that the toy lady is at. There's one in Philadelphia right now. There's one in San Francisco right now. And Rev, and I think I did see something there. Y'all are having something today too, right? Houston, we got all kind of it's so many different celebrations happening today. I'm going to one today at 12. I also got to be there early. It's a virtual celebration. I'm part of a group called the Center for the Healing of Racism, and we're having the Juneteenth Ally Awards ceremony. We're having it virtual because, of COVID. All right. We are honoring Lupito Nyong'o, a local artist named Mallory, who put on a virtual performance and gave the money to the center. And then we're also giving to an award to the coalition against Houston Coalition Against Hate. We give out awards every year. Okay, there are Lone Star College is having a ceremony. The city is putting one on. They're Galveston, because that's where it started. They're having one starting at 2:00 today until I don't know when they're gonna end. I think Missouri City has a very significant Black population. They're having one. There are family reunions going on today. Y'all mask up because it's COVID still out there. So there are people who are going to do the same thing that they did before it became a national holiday. They're going to do the same thing afterwards. Now, I do. Let's talk about the path to. Okay. Let's talk about. All right, so you did learn your church, yeah. Yeah. That's great, son. Ray of sunshine. Each one teach one. Each one teach one. Okay. So let me put this in here so y'all know. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting these messages. Y'all, I'm live. I'm live, y'all. Okay. All right. So let me find so I can put it in here. There's actually, now let's talk about the path to federal recognition. It's actually been going on for the past several years. And did y'all know that there's a Juneteenth flag? Okay. All right. I'm putting a link in the chat for y'all. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah. If no one knows about it, yeah. Okay. All right. So, and my friend told me about this last year. She said, "Oh, um, did you know it was a Juneteenth? I think I posted something, and I think I had the African American flag or the Black diaspora flag that's red, is it red, green? Yeah, red, black, and green." And she was like, "Oh, you should be having the Juneteenth flag." And I said, "The Juneteenth flag," and that's when she sent me this. That it was actually, okay. So this was what it was. Okay, it talks about the history of the Juneteenth And it says the modern Juneteenth movement. Like I said, there were people pushing for a federal holiday for decades, not just this year. And people are like, oh, they gave it to us. Well, the time was probably right now. I mean, we wasn't going to get it under Trump. Okay. There are people who lobby Congress. There are congressmen, Sheila Jackson Lee, Al Green from Houston, represents Houston area. Ironically, a U.S. Senator from Texas, John Cornyn, which y'all are from Texas, and those are not Texas, y'all need to tweet him, be like, hey, John, thank you so much for voting and supporting and introducing the Juneteenth National Act in the U.S. Senate. What you gonna do about reparations? What you gonna do about the how you gonna vote for the National Policing Act? Because that's where Roland Martin made a good point. He was like, all y'all complaining about, these people who are supporting this bill, use this opportunity to hold them accountable and ask them what they're going to do next about the other stuff that we want. Because, yeah, I want Juneteenth to be a holiday. I want reparations. I want the George Floyd Policing Act. And I want them to stop with the voter suppression. So it's a talking point. That's why local state elections are very important. You can petition, solicit these Congress people. They on Twitter, they on Facebook, they on Instagram, and they want to look good. They want people to think that they're good. Okay, so here you go. Most recent, 1994, the era of the modern Juneteenth movement began when a group of Juneteenth leaders from across the country gathered in New Orleans, Louisiana, at Christian Unity Baptist Church to work for a greater national recognition of Juneteenth. The historic meeting was convened by Reverend John Mosley, director of the New Orleans Juneteenth celebration. Several national Juneteenth organizations were ignited, including the National Association of Juneteenth Lineage, the National Juneteenth Celebration Association, the National Juneteenth Christian Leadership Council, and the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. Okay. There was also the National Juneteenth Convention and Expo, and then there was the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation, funded by Ben Heiss, who created the National Juneteenth flag. Okay. Reverend Dr. Myers returned to Washington, D.C., established the annual Washington Juneteenth National Holiday Observance, and began to campaign to establish Juneteenth Independence Day as a national day of observance and an official state holiday or state holiday observed in all 50 states and U.S. territories. 2017, 45 states and the District of Columbia have passed legislation to officially recognize Juneteenth. So some states were already through other efforts doing it on their own. The annual Congressional Juneteenth reception hosted by members of Congress at the Capitol was also established as part of the Washington Juneteenth National Holiday Observance. Okay. So please, like I said, go here and click on the history of the modern Juneteenth movement. So like I said, it's not just somebody giving us this day. It's been decades in the making. It just happened to be that this time is right for it getting passed. Now that it gets passed, let's get some other stuff passed too. Okay. This, like I said, this is a Juneteenth flag. Okay. Okay. It was red, white, and blue. Just like colors of the country. And then there's a star in the middle because guess what? We're the Lone Star State, and we were the ones that found out last. I'm I'm trying to think. So someone say what everything means. Okay. So, but I've been seeing like the little fist, the Black Power fist with red, green, and red. I need to tweet Twitter and like, hey, y'all need to put the correct colors or the correct flag up there because it's not correct. Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about there's another lady who was, I am sorry, who gets off work on federal. Is it just government employees? Um, Thank you. Very good point. Warrior 1975. Okay, so what has happened is if you work for a company, like for example, like Friday, HCC and a couple of some other businesses chose to start observing it this year because the bill got signed. The act got signed into law Thursday. My other college I work for, they're deciding to start observing it next year. So it's going to be on their calendar of holidays. So a lot of schools, colleges, corporate companies, because it's a federal holiday, they're going to be off. Unless you work in some type of business where they're like the movie theater, restaurants, they're probably going to be open. Okay. But like today is like I said, today June 19th, no banks are gonna be open today. Okay.